A viral 4-part video once sent shockwaves through social media, claiming that music mogul Sean "Diddy" Combs collapsed in court after the latest developments in the Cassie case.
After hearing the news that bail was denied, Combs looked back at his 3 sons who were sitting about 3 rows behind him and patted his chest. When I asked his attorney what Combs said to him after that news, he said, quote, "I'll see you tomorrow." Why? Because they will be back in court tomorrow to fight that bail denial. This afternoon, though, Combs walked into court wearing a black T-shirt and gray sweatpants. He kept his focus mainly on the judge and at times looked at his attorney when he was speaking. The 54-year-old hip-hop mogul was charged with sex trafficking, racketeering, and interstate transportation for prostitution following a months-long Homeland Security investigation. Prosecutors allege that Combs used his business empire to force women to engage in sexual acts with professional sex workers at events he called freak-offs.
Coming into the courtroom, the disgraced music mogul, Diddy looked a little rough around the edges compared to how he usually has been looking in these court appearances.
The mind-blowing claim, a man in an orange jumpsuit crumpling in a courtroom, turned heads instantly. But while that footage has since been debunked as misleading, the unfolding drama in and around the courtroom remains all too real. Today, as Cassie, formerly known as Cassandra Ventura, steps forward with new receipts, the layers of Diddy's legal and personal unraveling grow even more complex. So, what exactly is happening behind those guarded prison walls and court doors? And can these explosive new details reshape a legacy built over decades?
We have talked a lot about someone who could be a major witness at a trial, someone who is most likely cooperating with the government, someone whose allegations against Combs, I think it would be fair to say, make up a huge part of the current indictment. I'm talking about Cassandra Ventura, Cassie, Combs' ex-girlfriend. And remember, she sued him back in November of 2023 for sexual assault, battery, sex trafficking. This was among other claims. And that case ultimately started the ball rolling with more lawsuits filed against Combs and ultimately culminated with these criminal charges. In fact, there is an argument to be made that in Sean Combs' indictment for racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, transportation to engage in prostitution, she's allegedly victim 1, who was allegedly sex trafficked by force, fraud, or coercion. There is an argument to be made that that is her. Actually, one of her main accusations that we're going to go into is specifically described in this indictment. Again, it seems to me that her claims are what make up the majority of this indictment. Then the suit says, quote, "The truth, however, is that Cassie, Miss Cassandra Ventura, was held down by Mr. Combs and endured over a decade of his violent behavior and disturbed demands. For Miss Ventura, the dark times were those she spent trapped by Mr. Combs in a cycle of abuse, violence, and sex trafficking."
For starters, dismiss the notion that Diddy has been handed a life sentence. No judge has uttered that verdict yet, and no live-streamed moment confirms such a collapse. Instead, Combs finds himself detained at Brooklyn's Metropolitan Detention Center, facing serious charges of coercion and abuse that span several years.
DC has historically had tremendous problems, and the problems aren't resolved.
Combs' lawyer is originally hoping he could await trial under house arrest at his mansion, now arguing for him to be moved to a prison in New Jersey in the lead-up to this trial, citing the prison's poor conditions, violence, and deaths. On Wednesday, his lawyer said he was being held in a special housing unit with an extra level of security.
The viral video series, originally posted by TikTok user @WadeWilsonCree on November 11th, quickly amassed over 400,000 views. It featured a collage of images: a man in a wheelchair, a sudden collapse, the aura of defeat. Yet, beyond the digital noise lies a far more unsettling narrative: a once celebrated music executive now struggling under the weight of his own actions.
Diddy collapsed in court because he heard his sentence.
I didn't see that video.
So there was a huge article and it pretty much said Diddy heard his sentence and collapsed.
Okay.
Because he was in shock. This is a picture of him collapse. That's not Diddy, bro. That's not Diddy, man. That does not look like bro. That does not look like him.
But did you see his mugshot? It didn't look like him.
That didn't look like him either.
That's what I'm saying. He was way thinner.
It was weirdly shaped.
It was weirdly shaped.
You know what he looked like? You know the alien from American Dad?
It's the gray one, right?
Yeah, a little bit, right? A little bit? Yeah, I think his name's Roger. He puts disguises and shit on. That's definitely him, bro.
Like his head was weirdly shaped though. It wasn't Diddy, bro.
Reports suggest that during the Christmas season, a time that should have been filled with warmth and reunion, Diddy experienced a severe meltdown while confined behind bars. According to one source, the record producer, whose physical appearance has noticeably deteriorated with added gray hairs and a thinner frame, pleaded with prison guards to take him to a hospital for observation. The request was reportedly denied, leaving him alone to battle panic attacks during what many described as a nightmare holiday.
Judge Subramanian, he didn't bite on that, and Diddy's bail was denied for the third time. According to a report from the Daily Mail, that's why Diddy had a breakdown. A person close to him apparently said, quote, spending the holidays behind bars was a nightmare for him. If we're to believe all this, Diddy had a meltdown in his cell and begged the guards to take him to the hospital for observation, but they refused. This same friend or person told the Daily Mail, quote, he eventually managed to calm himself down with the meditation technique he's been using while he's been behind bars. It took him a few hours of deep breathing and focusing to get out of the bad space he was in, but he finally managed it.
Saying the hardest part for El Diddums is the food. And
food.
The food, not the lack of roofies or booze, but the food. He, like his first night of jail was Swedish meatballs. And then they have stuff that sounds good, but the old Metropolitan Detention Center has got to make it vomit-inducing. Things like tacos or fish. Nobody wants fish in jail or on an airplane or in a microwave. It's just, I'm sure he's probably losing a few pounds. And that's his complaint about prison.
With his high-powered legal team promising swift bail, the reality that he remains incarcerated intensifies the scrutiny. Meanwhile, a court order has even mandated the destruction of his jail cell notes, an unprecedented step that underscores the controversial nature of his detention.
The judge overseeing Sean Combs' criminal case out in New York, this federal case, has just decided whether or not Combs' rights were violated when there was a sweep by federal authorities at the detention center where Combs is currently being housed. Big issue that we've been focusing on, right? Why? Because the ramifications could be huge. If prosecutors, generally speaking, if prosecutors engaged in a form of misconduct that violates a defendant's rights, they might have to be recused from the case. The evidence could be excluded from trial. Maybe if something is really egregious or bad, the case gets dismissed. So I want to go through this order from Judge Arun Subramanian of the Southern District of New York. It's really fascinating. So again, Combs is facing federal racketeering, sex trafficking, and prostitution charges with a trial scheduled for May. Now, this is how the order begins. In connection with the Bureau of Prisons' October 28, 2024 to November 1st, 2024 sweep of the Metropolitan Detention Center, the MDC, a BOP investigator, Investigator 1, photographed 19 pages of Combs' notes and sent them to the government's filter team. The filter team consists of AUSAs, these are Assistant United States Attorneys, who aren't involved in the investigation or prosecution of this case. The filter team redacted the notes and sent them to the case team. The case team consists of the agents and AUSAs investigating and prosecuting Combs. So let me start there. So yes, there was a raid at the MDC.
But the plot thickens further with the emergence of Cassie's lawsuit. In a dramatic twist that shifts the spotlight from mere courtroom theatrics to deeply personal allegations, Cassie, once romantically linked to Combs, has come forward with accusations that have rattled the music industry.
She said from that point forward, she was terrified, isolated, and unable to see a pathway out of Mr. Combs' abusive hold on her life. She found herself numb to the abuse that she was experiencing. She began to blindly follow his instructions out of fear of, again, being on the receiving end of a vicious beating.
Ventura described in her suit being forced to pour oil on herself during the freak-offs and being given drugs to keep her engaged in these events, which were also called FOs. Ventura also described several instances of being beaten by Combs. In September of 2018, after dating Combs for a decade, Ventura described Combs raping her after she met him for dinner. She said she actually believed they were meeting to discuss ending their relationship, but then she said he forced his way into her home. Her suit said, Mr. Combs forced himself into her apartment and tried to kiss Ms. Ventura. She told him to stop and attempted to push him away. Mr. Combs then forcibly pulled off Ms. Ventura's clothing and unbuckled his belt. Then Ventura claimed Combs raped her, and their relationship ended for good. Last November, she released this statement after filing her civil suit. After years in silence and darkness, I am finally ready to tell my story and to speak up on behalf of myself and for the benefit of other women who face violence and abuse in their relationships. With the expiration of New York's Adult Survivors Act fast approaching, it became clear that this was an opportunity to speak up about the trauma I have experienced and that I will be recovering from for the rest of my life.
In documents filed in federal district court in Manhattan, she claims that shortly after they met in 2005, when she was just 19, Diddy began a calculated pattern of control and abuse. The suit alleges that the mogul not only manipulated her career and personal life, but also subjected her to repeated physical and sexual abuse. Cassie recounts a harrowing tale, from being forced into unspeakable encounters with male escorts, captured on camera during so-called freak-off sessions, to enduring violent outbursts that left her physically scarred and emotionally shattered.
Cassie, Ms. Cassandra Ventura, was held down by Mr. Combs and endured over a decade of his violent behavior and disturbed demands. For Ms. Ventura, the dark times were those she spent trapped by Mr. Combs in a cycle of abuse, violence, and sex trafficking. Among other violent and unlawful acts, Mr. Combs raped Ms. Ventura in her own home after she tried to leave him, often punched, beat, kicked, and stomped on Ms. Ventura, resulting in bruises, burst lips, black eyes, and bleeding. Blew up a man's car after he learned that he was romantically interested in Ms. Ventura. Forced Ms. Ventura to engage in sex acts with male sex workers while masturbating and filming the encounters. Ran out of his apartment with a firearm in pursuit of a rivalry industry executive whom he learned was nearby. Demanded Ms. Ventura to carry his firearm in her purse just to make her uncomfortable and demonstrate how dangerous he is, and introduced Ms. Ventura to a lifestyle of excessive alcohol and substance abuse, and required her to procure illicit prescriptions to satisfy his own addiction.
In one particularly disturbing account detailed in the lawsuit, Cassie alleges that during an incident in 2016, Diddy followed her into a hotel elevator bay and assaulted her. This footage, released by CNN, offers a glimpse into the turbulent reality behind the headlines. Although Diddy later issued an apology video on Instagram, expressing regret and claiming he sought therapy and rehabilitation, the damage had been done.
Exclusive surveillance video obtained by CNN appears to show the music mogul assaulting his then-girlfriend Cassie Ventura at a hotel in 2016. In the video, Combs can be seen striking and kicking Ventura as she tried to leave. I have the video right in front of me. We can't show it to you. We can't show it to you. But I'm watching this with the sound off as we speak. She's walking down the hallway in a hoodie, y'all, clearly trying to sneak out of the hotel room. We see him come sprinting down the hallway in just a towel. That's it. He goes up to her. He snatches her by the neck, yanks her to the ground. She lays there still. Okay? I'm looking at the video. I'm looking at the video while I'm talking to you. He snatches her by the neck, unless this is some lookalike, unless it's some clone, unless this is somebody that's like from Mission Impossible, like Tom Cruise wearing somebody else's face, looking exactly like them when it ain't them at all. Unless there's something along those lines. This is what we're looking at here. And you see the stills right there in the screen, and I get that. But I'm telling you right now, I'm watching this as we speak. And I've seen this video now because I want to make sure I know what I'm looking at. This is about the 10th time that I looked at it. He runs down, he snatches her by the neck, he yanks her to the ground, she lays still, then he launches a kick towards her like he's kicking a damn field goal, picks up the vase or whatever she had with her, kicks her again, hits her, she lays still, and then after that, he grabs her and drags her down the hallway.
Like if he had some ability to go, here's where, here's where this came from as far as the childhood I grew up in, the impact of that environment. If he had some ability to go like, here's how this happened and why I am ashamed that it has shown up in my life, then I would think there was some level of sincerity or at least interest in growing. But it wasn't that. It also lacked any reference to steps he has taken to improve his behavior, right? You can imagine you viciously abuse someone, you feel ashamed of yourself, as he says, you go to drug and alcohol treatment, you go to therapeutic treatment. You can imagine you would then go, I'm gonna change my behavior and here are the things I'm gonna do. Maybe you would go to meetings every day. You would change your social circle. You would change how you handle your leisure time. You would start going to church more. There are things that you would do. You would get yourself out of high stress environments. You would change your professional life. You would make big changes in your life to respond to this horrific behavior. But he doesn't mention any of that because he didn't do it. Because he just simply didn't do it. So,
the contrasting narratives here are as stark as they are disturbing. On one hand, we have a viral clip, a sensationalized, debunked portrayal of a collapsing mogul meant to shock and captivate. On the other, there is the grim reality of a man under immense pressure, both physically and legally, with his personal demons laid bare for the public to see. Diddy's deteriorating condition in court, his public breakdown during the holidays, and the growing weight of Cassie's receipts all converge to paint a picture of a once powerful figure now besieged by his past misdeeds.
The world is filled with uncomfortable lyrics. Combing through Diddy's discography, some of his music sounds almost prognostic. This includes the music video for 1998's Victory, in which the artist runs away from the authorities. Of all the songs he collaborated on, 1997's The World Is Filled may be the most unnerving to revisit. Throughout his verse, Combs sings about how it's a, quote, privilege for women to be with him, although the lyrics paint a much more troubling portrait. The line, quote, never give up freedom feels especially ironic and creepy. This isn't just because Combs has been arrested, but considering that the charges against him include sex trafficking, there's more than one way to interpret the word freedom here. In 2002, Combs appeared in the sketch comedy's now infamous Lil Fetus episode. Combs' presence has only added to the notoriety. The episode contains a few moments that aged like milk, including young girls cheering for Combs and the singer's giant head looking through a young boy's window.
Good morning. I can see in your room. Hey, stop screaming. Hey, it's just me, P. Diddy.
In the cringiest scene, Jack DeSena and Brian Hearn try to wake up Shane Lyons. They turn to Diddy, who gives them a toy helicopter and tells him to shove it down Shane's pants. When that doesn't work, Combs hands them the remote control, and the boys turn the helicopter on, awakening Shane to a world of pain.
Shall I? By all means.
Legal experts warn that the challenges facing both sides are monumental. For Diddy's defense, dismantling a narrative built on years of alleged misconduct and personal breakdowns will require not only countering the sensationalized footage circulating online, but also addressing the very human vulnerabilities that have surfaced. Vulnerabilities that include a reported meltdown over Christmas and a visibly altered demeanor in recent court appearances. Meanwhile, the prosecution must navigate the treacherous waters of public opinion, ensuring that the powerful, often polarizing nature of the case does not taint the jury pool before the trial even begins.
His defense here is that the government has no business going into the private affairs of what happens in someone's bedroom, that these acts were entirely consensual, that these witnesses, really a lot of them wanted to be in P. Diddy's circle of celebrity. They, what you have here are some of these people that have sued him, engaged in nothing more than a money grab. And now, these people are going to come in and testify. Their bias, their credibility has essentially been undermined because of their ulterior motives. And that really, it's going to hinge on that what occurred here was nothing more than consensual conduct between adults.
Okay, now play prosecutor. These are some of the best prosecutors you were saying. What are they going to argue?
I'm going to march every one of these witnesses in a courtroom, and I'm going to have them tell the horrific story of what went on when they were in the rooms there. And I'm going to put them in front of the jury, and the jury's going to hear these stories. And I think it's going to be difficult. It's going to be a very, very difficult case. I'll tell you, this is a case that will not settle via plea agreement. It's it's going to go to trial. And it's, we're all, it's not going to be televised, but we're going to hear about it, day by day in the news and the media. Really sensational facts.
Adding to the tension, the destruction of Diddy's jail cell notes, a move ordered by the court, has sparked controversy among critics who argue that it could hamper the investigation into his time in custody. They suggest that these documents might hold crucial clues to understanding not only his state of mind, but also the systemic issues within the detention facility itself. Such actions only deepen the mystery and fuel speculation about what else might be concealed behind closed doors.
New big development around Diddy as we're following this case very closely here on Live Now from Fox, as Diddy's lawyers say the feds raided his jail cell and seized a bunch of privileged material. So an interesting one, to say the least, about this. I want to put up some posts here from former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani about this, saying Diddy's lawyers are claiming that it violates his Fourth Amendment right. However, inmates don't have Fourth Amendment expectation of privacy in prison, so that argument is weak. Guards can search his cell without probable cause or a warrant. So a big development there in terms of this. Privileged material, different. The feds usually have a taint or dirty team of agents who aren't working on the case to conduct these searches. That way, if they see privileged materials, the clean team won't be disqualified from the case. It goes on to say as well, the prosecutors have reason to believe Diddy is obstructing justice from the prison by contacting witnesses through intermediaries. They made the same argument during his bail hearing. I think they have evidence to back it up.
Well, apparently, according to the defense, their legal documents, the government's saying no, on the contrary, they're just some handwritten notes and a calendar. And what the judge did, Judge Subramanian, is he ordered the prosecution to destroy their copies. He kept copies, and he's going to review them in chambers or in camera. And one of two things will happen. Either the defense is right, and those are privileged materials, in which case they will not go to the prosecution, or the prosecution is right, and they have nothing to do with the legal case, and the government will get copies. It's only 20 pages. I don't think it'll take the judge that long, but I think the media is reporting this as some huge win for the defense because the government has to destroy their copies. They may get copies of those documents in a matter of days. So I think it's premature to say that this is any type of victory for Sean Diddy Combs.
For Cassie, every new detail brought to light is a step toward reclaiming her narrative and challenging a system that has long protected powerful figures at the expense of vulnerable voices. Her decision to file the lawsuit under New York's Adult Survivors Act, a law designed to give survivors a final opportunity to seek justice, signals a turning point not just in her own life, but in an industry that has struggled for years to address the abuses hidden behind fame and fortune.
Well, happening today, Governor Hochul will sign a new law to help victims of child sex abuse who miss legal deadlines to sue their abusers. The Adult Survivors Act will give those victims a second chance to file lawsuits. It provides a one-year window in which the state's usual statute of limitations for civil lawsuits will be set aside. The bill received final approval on Monday from the New York State lawmakers. It's modeled after the state's now expired Child Victims Act, which led to more than 9,000 lawsuits.
As we watch these parallel stories unfold, the debunked myth of a courtroom collapse, and the very real, heart-wrenching allegations in Cassie's lawsuit, a crucial question remains. Will the truth finally pierce through the carefully constructed facades of celebrity power? Or will the whirlwind of media speculation continue to distort the facts?
Day from the musical group Danity Kane that Combs helped to form claimed that Combs had asked her to sign an NDA in exchange for the group's publishing rights. Now, as she said on the podcast, only stands, quote, I have to release him for any claims or wrongdoings or actions prior to the date of the release. I have to sign an NDA that I will never disparage Puff, Bad Boy, Janice Combs, or Justin Combs' music, or EMI, or Sony ever in public. She also said in another interview in 2022 that she was fired from the group by Combs because she wasn't willing to do what was expected of her, not talent-wise, but in other areas. And also, since the raid, she has referred to herself as a victim.
Gene Deal has said that Diddy has some of the most powerful people in the country under his control, and all of this was a planned conspiracy. Diddy's victims literally predicted that there were going to be fires. Diddy had a habit of gaining leverage on the people that could come against him, and that was his backup plan. It looks like now that backup plan is being used, and Diddy is doing everything he can to save his skin. Gene Deal reported how everyone, including pastors, politicians, and even athletes, were under Diddy's control.
How many friends he have and nobody came out?
They brand. It's all about the money. They saw what he did to Cassie. With the kicking, the punching. They saw what they did to Cassie. They know that nobody in America liked that. So now, these people are represented by a brand. Whether it's something about the music, clothing, movies. They're not gonna come out and speak on nothing that has anything to do with them. And they praying that they not on the tape doing crazy stuff, being oiled up in the whole 9 yards. They praying. So until the feds say, hey, yo, listen here. We got you on, hey buddy, we got you on this tape, and girl looked like she was pretty young. We're not gonna show it, but we need you to come and testify against Brother Love, P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, you know, Sean Combs. That's when they're gonna start talking. And they're not gonna be talking in his favor. When the feds come to them and show them what they got on tape, because if he had 250 tapes all over, 250 cameras all over the house, somebody got caught stealing a cookie out the cookie jar. It could be your favorite pastor. It could be your favorite politician. But they didn't think they was being watched. And Brother Love was watching.
Yeah, I mean, TD Jakes, he hasn't even came out and said anything. And him and Diddy was real cool.
Amen. Amen. Yeah, man. And I know the people in the congregation over there is shaking in their boots because this man didn't led them probably, allegedly probably led them to damnation, because those people's hearts are gonna be broken if that man is seen on those tapes doing anything. Because people always put their faith in the pastor instead of putting their faith in God. And what they need to do is understand that he's just a man. And he has a history. It's not looking too good for him.
So you feel like celebs are worried that they might be on tape?
Oh, they know. That's why they ain't speaking up or saying nothing. Yeah, I was at a Diddy party, but I know I ain't do nothing. When you don't know somebody's taping you, when you don't know that somebody is videoing you in some kind of form or fashion, you got that alcohol, you got the drugs in you, they're a little loose, bruh. They let down all their inhibitions. The music is pumping. He said it himself. He got it so hot in there that you gotta take your clothes off. He said that himself, bruh.
Stay tuned as we continue to peel back the layers of this complex case, where every new development adds fuel to the fire, and every revelation brings us closer to understanding the true cost of power gone awry. If you want to stay ahead of every explosive update in this high-stakes battle, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. The truth is on its way, and you won't want to miss a beat.